Kalen Anthony was handsome, long-legged, and, unfortunately, a cold and aloof beta. Around the office, coworkers sighed with thinly veiled yearning. With looks like Mr. Anthony's, I could forgive the beta part. But with the way he's married to his work? Pretty sure he plans to spend the rest of his life wedded to spreadsheets. I rubbed my nose guiltily and couldn't help but glance over at my boss, whose voice today held the faintest rasp. There was no way I could tell them the truth, that Kalen Anthony, the man who'd posed for years as a beta, was in fact an omega. And at night, he was nothing short of terrifying. Beneath that high-neck black sweater of his, the skin of his throat was still covered in the bruised traces of my kisses from last night. Welcome to History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. The air in the manager's office was ice cold. I stood across from Kalen Anthony, my immediate superior, barely daring to breathe. A few days ago, I'd messed up a crucial project, the kind of mistake you don't make when dealing with high-profile clients. Word was, our big boss had dragged Kalen into his office for a full-blown verbal lashing. The shouting was so loud, even coworkers outside heard every word through the closed door. Now, looking at Kalen's face, sharp, handsome, but darkened with rage, I could barely get my voice out. I'm sorry, manager. This was my... Pointing fingers is meaningless, he interrupted coolly, his razor-sharp eyes cutting into me. He crossed one long leg over the other, fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk. His tone was dispassionate, cold. Have the revisions done by tonight. I'll handle the client meeting tomorrow morning. I trudged back to my desk like a condemned man, already ordering a sad late-night meal. Working overtime was inevitable. This was my mess, after all. But I had to admit, Kalen Anthony was a good boss. Working under him was hellish, sure, you barely had time to blink. But if anything went south, he took the fall. He even fought for our bonuses when things went well. As the office emptied and darkness settled in, the only light came from my monitor. The time in the corner flicked over to midnight. I finally shut down and stretched, only to feel a dizzy spell that nearly knocked me off my feet. Stupid, I muttered, knocking myself lightly on the head. Should have double-checked everything. I grabbed my coat, planning to find a snack before heading home. Outside, the late autumn wind bit through my sleeves. I pulled my coat tighter and caught something in the corner of my eye, a figure slumped near the street corner. Drunk? In this kind of cold, that was dangerous. I hesitated, then approached to check if the guy was conscious. He had a tall, slender frame, clad in a familiar camel trench coat. His breath was ragged, uneven. Then I smelled it. A thick wave of jasmine, sweet, heady, unmistakably phenomenal. I froze. It was the scent of an omega in heat. Strong enough to fog the brain and stir up every primal instinct I had. The fragrance invaded my senses like smoke, and something deep in my gut caught fire. My body responded before I could stop it, heat crawling under my skin, whispering the same thing over and over, take him. I recognized this feeling. It meant my sensitivity had been triggered early by the omega's scent. The only smart choice now was to turn around and walk away. I swallowed hard and looked at the figure again. That face, it was unmistakably Kalen Anthony. What the hell? Wasn't he supposed to be a beta? Leaving him there wasn't an option. I clenched my fists, trying to suppress the storm inside me, and knelt beside him, lightly shaking his shoulder. Mr. Anthony? Mr. Anthony? He opened his eyes, dazed, as if unsure how he ended up there. My breath caught. Those sharp, calculating eyes were now glazed with a misty sheen. The corners were red, lashes trembling slightly. His lips parted, white puffs of air mixing with... I hauled him up as gently as I could, trying to ignore how hot his body felt against mine, praying he wouldn't notice how my own temperature was skyrocketing. That short walk to the parking lot? Hardest walk of my life. Once I finally stuffed him into the passenger seat, I nearly exploded. Bracing myself against the car door, I bent forward, trying to hide the physiological evidence of my self-control nearing its limits. Inside, Kalin shed his coat and tossed it into the back seat. He was breathing hard, suppressing sounds that were far too suggestive, one hand rummaging through the glove box. His shirt lifted with each motion, exposing a flash of pale waist. "Where is it?" he muttered. "I thought I still had aloof, the suppressant." I stared, frozen. That skin, white as snow, drew my eyes like a magnet. Before I knew what I was doing, my hand was already on his waist. His body flinched at the touch, but he didn't pull away. "Mr. Anthony," I said, and with no resistance from him, I leaned in emboldened. "If you don't have any suppressants left, there's another way." Kalen Anthony's eyes widened in shock. "You knew?" he asked, disbelief laced through his voice. "Wait, aren't you supposed to be a beta? How could you even smell pheromones?" I scratched the back of my neck, then reached up to peel off the nearly useless scent blocker. "Didn't you also claim to be a beta, manager?" The moment the patch came off, my glands surged to life, releasing a warm, creamy scent into the air, faintly sweet, embarrassingly rich. And just like that, my secret was out. This was why I'd been hiding as a beta all these years. But now wasn't the time to explain or to pretend. If we didn't handle this soon, neither of us was getting out of this car tonight. Kalin turned his head to the side, the tips of his ears and the slope of his neck flushed a deep, helpless red. "Kalen Anthony," I leaned in, voice low, almost pleading. "Have some mercy. You pushed me into my early susceptibility. I won't even make it home like this." He didn't answer right away. But I waited, patient. After a long, tense silence, he finally muttered under his breath, "Make it quick. I have a client meeting in the morning." The confined space of the car was thick with overlapping scents, jasmine and warm milk, twining into something far too intoxicating. I helped ease him into the back seat, laying his camel-colored coat beneath him. The fabric wrinkled beneath our movements. Leaning over him, I began undoing the buttons on his shirt with my teeth. He pressed a hand to my head, trying to push me away. "Can't you just use your hands like a normal person?" "I would," I replied, mouth curved against his skin, "but they're currently a little busy." I moved my fingers, and he lowered his head, then raised it with a flushed face. The person beneath him had no time to speak, only heavy gasps echoing. Kalen Anthony flinched involuntarily as his upper body was completely exposed to the air. He must have exercised regularly. Most omegas have soft, delicate skin, but the body before him was covered in a thin layer of muscle, its lines tight and beautiful. I trailed kisses down his neck, slow and deliberate. Kalen Anthony's fingers tightened in my hair, a startled response, like someone unaccustomed to having boundaries crossed, especially ones this intimate. I leaned in, instinctively trying to soothe him with a kiss. He turned his head sharply away. "Don't kiss me," he said, his voice tight. "We're not lovers. This is just circumstantial. Physical need. That's all." Kissing would make it weird. Somehow, those clinical words stung more than they should have. The alpha in me, that primal thing I'd kept buried under years of control, reared its head, possessive, impatient, and suddenly very, very done pretending. I gritted my teeth, swallowing down my emotion, and shifted my tone to match his. "Well then," I said quietly, "let's handle this the way you always prefer, efficiently." Clearly, he wasn't ready for what came next. He writhed beneath me in the cramped leather back seat like a fish pulled from the water, his teeth sinking into his lower lip as half-broken sounds spilled out of him, each one blooming across his pale skin in faint, flushed shades of red. But when the storm finally swept him under, he stopped trying to hold anything back. His hands clawed down my back, breath hitching, voice catching in ways that surprised even me. Every time I thought I had found his limit, he gave more. And somewhere in the mess of heat and scent and broken restraint, I stopped thinking altogether. His pale neck, usually hidden beneath high collars and indifference, was now streaked with the evidence of our unraveling. My back burned from the marks he'd left behind. When instinct finally overpowered reason, I lowered my mouth to his nape and let the bite sink in, sealing something far beyond just scent into his trembling body. Kalin shuddered, tears slipping from his eyes, not from pain, not quite. And only then did the parking lot return to silence. The next morning, I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Whether it was the energy spent or the total lack of sleep, I could barely focus as I stood in the break room yawning, waiting for my coffee to brew. My eyes flicked toward Kalen's office. Empty. Guess he left early for that client meeting. In the next room, some coworkers were chatting, probably unaware I was nearby. Man, I'm jealous. Didn't Mr. Anthony just land a major account? Your team's bonus must be locked in this year. Don't even mention it. I'm drowning. The bonus is the only thing keeping my soul together. Honestly though, he's good-looking and competent. That's a win. Shame he's a beta. Well, with a face like that, beta or not, I wouldn't mind. Too bad he's married to the job. Someone said he got asked out before, but he didn't even blink. I sipped my coffee slowly, the faint sting of fingernail marks on my back serving as a sharp contrast to their assumptions. Kalin might wear the beta mask well, but last night? He was anything but cold. Still, I had to wonder, was he really okay today? He could barely move when I drove him home. I sat down at my desk, torn between pretending nothing happened, or at least checking in to be polite. My phone buzzed. Mr. Richards, if you're free, come to my office. I swallowed, pulse skipping for no good reason. When I stepped inside, he was already behind his desk, dressed in a black turtleneck pulled high up his neck, no guessing why. He didn't look at me. Just a brief glance, then his eyes dropped back to the screen. Sit, he said, voice rougher than usual. I obeyed, stiff-backed like a student summoned for detention, hands awkward on my lap, trying not to look guilty. He started with business. Client feedback. Follow-up instructions. Thanks to our immediate response and generous fixes, there was no real fallout. We'd been chewed out, sure, but the relationship was intact. I exhaled quietly, relieved. Then he shut his laptop with a soft click. There's also a personal matter I'd like to discuss, he said, fingers steepled under his chin. Yes, sir? A flicker of secret anticipation rose in me, but my survival instincts fought hard to keep my expression neutral. Kalen Anthony hesitated for a moment, as if weighing his words. He cleared his throat, unnecessarily, and though his face remained composed, the tips of his ears were completely red. You already know enough, he said. So I'll be direct. My suppressants have been losing their effect. If something like last night happens again, it'll disrupt my normal life. He looked straight at me. So I want to propose an arrangement. You'd mark me temporarily on a regular basis and I'll compensate you. I paused but couldn't help asking, for my own selfish reasons. Manager, if I may, with your looks and credentials, it wouldn't be hard for you to find a partner. Why pay for something like this? I have no interest in being someone's partner, Kalin said flatly, expression cooling. Aside from what happened last night, I'm making this offer because I trust your character, Mr. Richards. You've been hiding your identity just like I have. I figured you might understand. My apologies, I said quickly, standing up and walking around to his side of the desk. I rested a hand on his shoulder and gave it a light pat. You don't need to pay me. Like you said, we both deal with the same issue. Partnering with you would save me a fortune in suppressants. It's a win-win for me. Kalin stiffened, clearly unused to casual contact. I withdrew my hand, took a step back, and returned to my seat. So, I continued, how often do you think we should meet? And where? Kalin glanced away. Next weekend. My place. Kalen Anthony's home was exactly like the man himself, meticulously ordered, almost obsessively so. This time wasn't as unhinged as the night in the car. We moved through the dark and silence with wordless familiarity. When it was over, Kalen's body sagged again in quiet exhaustion. I flipped on the light and scooped him up in my arms. Robert Richards, what the hell are you doing? He struggled awkwardly in my hold, his voice sharp with indignation. I'm helping you wash up, I said, carrying him straight to the bathroom. Kalen's face turned scarlet. That's not necessary. I can do it myself. We're not. Right. We're not lovers, I cut in, setting him down into the tub and adjusting the water temperature with a casual flick. Just consider it my way of sucking up to my boss, okay? He said nothing, but closed his eyes and turned his face away, reluctantly allowing it. I washed us both, then threw the crumpled sheets into the washer and changed into fresh clothes. I was just about to leave when his quiet voice stopped me at the door. "Thank you. Let's do this every 2 weeks. Same place." Only Kalen Anthony could phrase something like this with the efficiency of assigning a task. I sighed, raised my hand behind me with a wordless "okay," and walked out, feeling like a hopeless corporate drone even outside the office. And so, our contract continued with mechanical regularity. Over time, Kalin relaxed. The resistance faded. He no longer flinched when I lifted him into the bath, no longer avoided my gaze. Sometimes I brought 2 jasmine milk teas to his place. After the storm passed, once the sheets were changed and the room thick with scent, I would sit on the edge of the bed and sip. Kalin would jab his straw through the seal with a frown. "Why this flavor again?" I flashed him a grin. "Feels on theme, don't you think?" He rolled his eyes hard enough to sprain something, but still reminded me to take out the trash on my way out. I laughed and promised I would. But as the door shut behind me, the smile slowly slid off my face. People are greedy. At first, I was just thankful to be near him. Then I wanted more. I began wondering, just maybe, could it ever be more than this? But I knew better. The 15 minutes of sipping milk tea in his bedroom was already the furthest line I was allowed to cross. I had to guess why Kalin kept his identity hidden. He was proud, decisive, and radiated competence. The kind of leader who lit up any room he walked into. None of those traits fit society's mold for what an Omega should be. But so what? He was Kalen Anthony. He was the only one who stood up for me when I was young and reckless and had no idea how the professional world worked. When I was thrown under the bus, he stepped forward, voice calm and absolute. "Robert trained under me. I reviewed the proposal personally. I'll take full responsibility." Behind his silhouette, my phone lit up with a new message that made my throat tighten. "Don't worry. It's fixable. Don't carry it all alone." Whether it was imprinting or something deeper, I never looked away from him again. And no matter what I had to do, as long as it helped him stay dignified, proud, and untouchable, I'd do it. Gladly. Kalin had been swamped lately. So swamped, in fact, that even our routine bi-weekly arrangement was cancelled due to his business trip. I couldn't sit still at my desk. Worry buzzed beneath my skin. After a moment's hesitation, I decided to send him a message. "You free tonight? It's about that time again." His reply came quickly. "Important dinner meeting tonight." I tapped out a reply. "Want me to go with you? Someone needs to drive if you're drinking." He was going to refuse, I could tell. But after a few rounds of gentle pestering, he gave in. When I saw him at the hotel entrance, he looked like he'd just gotten off a plane, hair tousled, eyes a bit winded. I followed quietly behind him into the private room. Our company had been expanding aggressively into a new sector, one far removed from our usual clientele. Most of the guests at this dinner were unfamiliar faces. I subtly scanned the room. Of all the unfamiliar faces at the table, the only one I recognized was tonight's host, Mr. Daniel. I'd met him once before while accompanying Kalen Anthony, an alpha who loved the sound of his own voice and carried an insufferable sense of superiority. The kind of man I least liked dealing with. It didn't take long for Mr. Daniel to start aggressively pushing drinks. I kept my mouth shut and played the part, drinking more than I spoke, blocking each toast that came Kalen's way with practiced ease. After several rounds, the air at the table took on an odd weight. A strange scent drifted into the space, sharp and alien. The moment I caught a whiff, every muscle in my body tensed. My glands flared with warning pain. It was an alpha's pheromone, released on purpose. I'd replaced my scent patch just before we came, but my body responded anyway, releasing the faintest trace of milk-sweet scent. Luckily, no one seemed to notice. Most people at the table were alphas, and all of them wore similarly strained expressions. Different pheromones began to mix in the enclosed room, each one louder and more restless than the last. It was the involuntary biological response of alphas challenged by another. In public, it was borderline humiliating. I followed the trail back to its source. Mr. Daniel sat at the head of the table, swirling his glass with a smug look in his half-lidded eyes. Satisfaction. Arrogance. The gleam of someone thoroughly enjoying the chaos he'd set in motion. It hit me immediately. This was dominance theater. His way of testing everyone, flaunting his status. He wanted to provoke a reaction, wanted the discomfort and forced politeness of those beneath him. But Kalen Anthony was an omega. This was beyond cruel, it was unbearable. His body trembled beside me, lips pressed together so tightly they'd lost all color. He was on the verge of collapsing. I couldn't even begin to imagine what would happen if someone caught wind of his scent in this room. We needed to get out. My eyes darted around the table and landed on a freshly opened bottle of Baijiu. No hesitation. I grabbed it, raised it high toward Mr. Daniel, and plastered on the most sycophantic grin I could muster. Then I launched into the loudest, most ridiculous round of flattery I'd ever performed in my life, and down the whole thing in one go. The burning liquor scorched my throat on the way down. I choked, tears streaming, nearly gagging. But I didn't stop talking, just babbled louder. The tension finally snapped. The room erupted in laughter, some mocking, some oddly admiring. Compliments and teasing flew in both directions, giving the dinner party new, rowdy energy. Mr. Daniel chuckled, pretending to be concerned. "You all right over there?" I waved both hands in surrender. Kalin took the cue and reached over, helping me stagger out of the room like a drunk who'd pushed too far. Truth be told, I had drunk too much. The world blurred at the edges. I pulled him into a bathroom stall, misjudging my own strength. He stumbled in after me. The air filled with jasmine. Kalen's eyes flickered with alarm. He pushed at my chest weakly. "Robert Richards, calm down. We can't do this here." I panted, fumbling in my pocket, and finally pulled out a small syringe. He froze. "What's that?" "My tongue's gone numb," I said hoarsely. "Just listen. It's a calming agent. Pheromone-based. Temporary fix. Inject it straight into the gland." He didn't ask further. Snapping off the cap, he pressed the needle to his nape and injected the liquid without hesitation. I helped him out of his coat, then fastened the top button of his shirt to hide the faint flush on his neck. "It's absorbed some of the scent. Don't wear it again. Just say I threw up on you. Make up an excuse and get out of here." Kalin looked at me for a long moment. Then he turned to the mirror, straightened his cuffs, reset his expression. He returned shortly and propped up my barely conscious body, guiding me through the lobby and out to the car. My stomach was a war zone. I could only imagine how pathetic I looked. I tried to pull away, mortified, but his arms stayed firm around me, steady and warm. When he laid me down in the back seat, he slipped a hand beneath my head to soften the fall. Then he climbed into the driver's seat. Neither of us spoke. The yellow glow of the street lamps passed slowly over the windshield, rolling across his profile and then over mine, painting both of us in the grainy, off-kilter light of a silent film. We looked like two fools on the run. I didn't care. My head throbbed. My only wish was to fall asleep. So I did. I woke up in Kalen Anthony's bed. It wasn't unfamiliar, I'd seen it plenty of times, but sleeping in it was a first. The pillow smelled faintly of detergent and jasmine. It soothed something inside me I hadn't realized was clenched tight. When I sat up groggily, head still pounding, I saw him quietly sitting nearby. "You're awake," he said. He stood and walked to the kitchen, returning with a bowl of soup. "Drink. It'll help." I took it, letting the warmth ease down into my stomach. "What time is it?" "I'm sorry, did I mess up your night?" He shook his head. "Not at all. I should be the one thanking you." The city sparkled outside the window, glowing with 1,000 lights like stars flipped upside down. I wasn't ready to leave. The headache still lingered, so I joined him on the balcony, letting the night breeze cool my face. Kalin asked, "When did you prepare that suppressant?" I pressed a thumb to my temple. "A while ago. Just in case something like tonight happened. But I only had one. It's expensive. I can't really afford to make more." A part of me was terrified he'd ask why I'd gone to the trouble. But he didn't. He just looked away, eyelids lowering slightly. Maybe it was the atmosphere, just right for honesty. Or maybe, after everything we'd just gone through, the distance between us had finally shrunk, if only a little. After a long pause, Kalen said softly, "You're local, right?" I gave a wry smile. "Not every local has money, you know." He shook his head. "That's not what I meant. I meant to say," he began, voice low beneath the city's glow, "that the city I dreamed of in my school years isn't all that different from my hometown. The people there are boundaryless in their goodwill. They're always eager to interfere, to offer guidance to anyone younger. After my secondary gender presented, people constantly told me, 'You should be gentle, be accommodating, be soft.' No one likes a sharp-tempered omega. As for who I was before I became an omega, no one cared. I hated that kind of discipline. Those words wrapped around me like a net, airtight and suffocating, as if everyone was meant to fit neatly into their assigned boxes. I understood it too. Obeying the rules brings safety. Belonging is a warm and easy place to rest. Being different takes too much. It was the kind of moment that called for a cigarette, but neither of us smoked. So he just took a deep breath of the neon-colored night. I hid my gender and ran away, to a bigger city, supposedly more open. But even here, I never escaped that net. The threads are just subtler. The holes are wider, just big enough for me to keep the illusion of control. But running never solves anything. Every time I brush against the invisible lines that divide people, every time I struggle through the night on suppressants to fend off instinct, I start to wonder, was I really right all along? He looked out across the skyline, light catching in his lashes. "I'm just lucky," Kalen Anthony said softly, "that in my most vulnerable moment, it was you I met. Thank you, Robert, for your help and for your respect." I gripped the edge of the balcony, knuckles turning white. I wanted to tell him I wasn't worthy of being his lucky break, that I was just a mediocre, timid alpha with a scent people laughed at. I couldn't possibly live up to the weight of his gratitude. But I also wanted to ask, was that "thank you" a boundary or a goodbye? Was this the limit, polite appreciation and nothing more? I nearly said it all. I wanted to drop the act, let the alcohol speak, confess every unspoken desire even if it earned a painful rejection, because at least then I'd know. But in the end, all that came out was, "You don't need to thank me." "Are we still continuing?" I asked. Kalin gave the faintest hum of assent, then turned back toward the apartment. "It's late. Get some rest. We both have work tomorrow. You can sleep here. I'll take the study." I said goodnight and pulled the blanket over my head like an ostrich pretending not to exist. I didn't hear the words he whispered after closing the door. "I just need a little more time to think." The thing about adulthood is that no matter what happens, you always learn how to return to normal at record speed. Neither of us brought up that night again. Due to what happened at the dinner, Kalen requested to hand off the Daniel account to someone else. But the company had just finished a round of cost-cutting, and the team was stretched thin. Besides, Kalen had been managing that project from the start, and it was at a critical stage. The request was denied. I ended up driving Kalen and our boss to Mr. Daniel's company for a follow-up visit. Just stepping into the building made my stomach churn. Throughout the presentation, I kept one eye on Mr. Daniel. Thankfully, he behaved himself this time, sat through the whole proposal, stuck to business, said all the right things. I started to relax. Just as I closed the PowerPoint and began confirming next steps, Mr. Daniel turned to our boss with a smile and said, "Mr. Franklin, this is our first time working together, and I'm quite curious about your company culture." His gaze slid toward me and Kalen. If I hadn't had dinner with these two the other night, I'd have assumed they were both betas. My blood ran cold. So he had noticed. Our boss looked stunned. Kalen's expression turned to ice. I forced a laugh. "Mr. Daniel, that's a private matter. Let's keep our focus on the proposal." But Daniel just smiled again, that same malicious gleam back in his eyes. "Oh, come on, we're all going to be good friends soon. No need to be so uptight. Mr. Franklin," he turned to our boss, "you don't mind a bit of friendly teasing, do you? We were the vendors here. Our posture had to stay lower." Ignoring me completely, he cornered our boss with a grin. The message was clear. Your boss isn't offended, so why should you be? Mr. Franklin chuckled awkwardly. This is news to me too. But it's just a joke. Nothing to take offense at, Mr. Daniel. Daniel crossed his legs and flicked ash from his cigarette with satisfaction. He pointed vaguely toward me. This one, I mean, what can I say? An alpha who still smells like warm milk. It's kind of embarrassing, isn't it? But Mr. Anthony, now that's a shame. Hiding all that charm behind a mask. Then again, maybe I just don't get today's trends. Is this what they call playing hard to get? He chuckled to himself. Seems like a lot of unnecessary trouble to me. Omega traits have their advantages, you know. Just like this collaboration, we'll be working closely with Mr. Anthony. Can't avoid a bit of deep communication, right? He dragged out the word deep, eyes lingering on Kalin in a way that made my stomach flip. The chair scraped back hard against the floor. Before my brain could stop me, my fist had already crashed into Mr. Daniel's face. Say that again. I dare you. Chaos exploded, screams, chairs overturned, people shouting and pulling me back. But I felt like, for the first time, there were no voices in my head telling me to endure, to think twice, to smile and swallow it. Just instinct. Just fury. I didn't stop until a hand closed gently around my wrist. His hand. Dry one. It grounded me instantly. I forgot to mention, Kalen said coolly, I record my meetings. What you just said, sexual harassment and gender-based discrimination, wouldn't look good if it got out, would it? He turned away. Excuse us. Robert, let's go. Kalen led me through the stunned, whispering crowd. His spine was straight. His pace was steady. I held onto his hand, barely realizing I had done it, part of me wishing that this escape would never end. By the time we pulled up in front of his building, the storm in my chest had mostly passed. I clutched the steering wheel, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm sorry. I acted on impulse just now. Did I hurt you? This was all my fault. I'll tell the boss I'm resigning if... How are you still this dumb after all these years? He cut me off. The words were framed like a scolding, but his voice carried no blame. In fact, it held a trace of quiet amusement. And just like that, I crumbled. I don't know, I murmured. I told myself I didn't want to stay behind you forever. I wanted you to stop carrying everything alone. I wanted to help, but I keep getting it wrong. I'm rash. I don't think things through. But when it comes to you, I can't control myself anymore. Not when someone talks about you like that. But you didn't do anything wrong, he said gently. In every way that matters, you've always done well. That voice again. Like I wasn't someone who just punched a client across the face, but some fresh out of college intern who didn't know better. My voice trembled. Don't comfort me like that. Don't use that voice on me. Don't make it easy to forgive myself. What about this instead? The rest of my words were silenced by his lips. I froze, eyes wide, staring at Kalen Anthony as he leaned in, his features magnified in front of me. Then he bit my lower lip, lightly, deliberately. His gaze glittered with a teasing indulgence. You're supposed to close your eyes when you kiss, he said. Do I have to teach you everything? We kissed, fumbled, tangled down the hallway and into the bedroom. The mattress dipped under the weight of two, the sheets wrinkling into the shape of something new. I stared into his eyes, dazed, dilated, swimming with heat. This wasn't instinct. It wasn't necessity. It was desire. Clear, conscious, and uncontainable. A tide pulling us under. I held him close, needing him, wanting him, letting us both drown in something that had long stopped pretending to be simple. At the height of it all, his voice trembled against my ear. Robert, mark me. I like your scent. I want your pheromones. We lost ourselves from dusk until deep into the night. Later, he stretched out languidly in the tub while I sat nearby, scrubbing him clean with a towel. I bet you've been dying to ask what I plan to do next, he said with a smirk. I gave a resigned sigh. Yes. So, what's your plan? The company's shifting in a direction I don't like. But I can't control the boss. Kalen leaned back against the edge of the tub. I've saved up a decent amount over the years. I have connections in the industry. I've been thinking about starting my own firm anyway. This incident just gave me the final push. So, He looked at me, gaze steady. This wasn't because of anything you did. You don't have to worry. The last knot in my chest unraveled completely. My throat tightened. Then, can I still follow you? He gave me a familiar look, the one he always wore when I asked something stupid. Half exasperation, half fondness. Department head of marketing. 15-month salary, project bonuses, double your current pay. Sound good? His mood seemed lifted, so I risked a little more. And does your company allow employees to kiss their boss? Kalin let out an incredulous laugh. He hooked an arm around my neck and dragged me into the tub with him. If I'm writing the handbook, the first rule is no office romances during work hours. Then with a smirk. But what happens after hours is none of the company's business. Mr. Richards working late again? The manager under me had just finished his project update and couldn't resist teasing. We'd brought a good number of our team over from the old company, and he was one of them. After proving himself, he'd earned the department manager title fair and square. We'd always gotten along. I gave a tired smile. Yeah. Still owe our dear boss a quarterly report. He said if I don't turn it in tonight, I can pack my bags for the branch office. He shuddered. Boss still the same, huh? All business, no mercy. Has he ever been any different? The city lit up outside the window, casting faint golden patterns on the floor. I hit the last key, saved the doc, and sent it. Then I walked toward his office. Come in. Kalen didn't glance up. His eyes stayed glued to the screen, the pale light of the document reflected in the lenses of his gold-rimmed glasses, stern and sexy in a way that made my thoughts wander. Until he opened his mouth and ruined it. This report is incredibly bare bones. Cut me some slack, I sighed, raising both hands in surrender. You know how slammed I've been. I only managed this much by working overtime. The core content's all there, right? Let's not nitpick the rest. He made a disapproving noise but didn't argue further. I knew that meant I'd passed. So I stepped behind his chair and started massaging his shoulders. Not too light, not too firm. By the way, did you hear? That Zhao guy went bankrupt. Owes a ton, apparently. Kalen batted my hands away. If you spent half as much time writing reports as you do gossiping about irrelevant drama, your deliverables might actually improve. Why are we back on that again? I gave him my best puppy eyes. Next time I swear. But for now, let's clock out, yeah? It's Friday night. Weren't we planning to, you know? His ears flushed. He turned away, clearly flustered. But his hand moved toward the mouse and hovered over the shutdown button. I leaned in, grinning, and gently nibbled his ear, earning exactly the reaction I expected. Robert Richards, he hissed. How many times do I have to tell you, no messing around in the office? Wait till we get home. But boss, I whispered, all fake innocence. It's after hours. The end.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.